Judo is actually a philosophy. Whenever you hear the word do in Japanese, that means way. And Ju means gentle. So Judo literally translates to the gentle way. And it's really a concept of how you do things. For instance, one of the things in Japan is rock, paper, scissors. Judo would be the paper. We like to wrap things. We use softness in order to take over force that's coming at us. And this same philosophy can be applied to every aspect of your life. The inventor of Judo, Dr. Jigoro Kano, in 1882, during the Meiji Restoration era, saw a lot of benefit to the practice of the samurai bushido, the martial arts. And he thought that it had a place in modern society. So he reformed a lot of the dangerous techniques, and he turned it into an exercise, a sport that's now part of the Olympics since 1964. In fact, one of our most famous Olympians used to train at my dojo over in Claremont, and I'm sure you all heard of her, Ronda Rousey. I promoted her to 4th degree black belt after she won the Olympics in 2008. And she's a wonderful person, and she really depicts all the elements of what a good judoka is about. Two of my students, they're both Shodan, 1st degree black belts, Myung and Amir, and one's from Korea, the other one's from Iran. The reason I point that out is because Judo is truly international. In Judo, when you go into the dojo, you take off your suit, you take off your uniform that you wore, if you were a cop, if you were a fireman, if you were a doctor, and you all put on the gi, which used to be all white, but then because of the Olympics, we now have a white and a blue to indicate which side of the mat you're on. But here's the thing, when you're in the Judo gi, you don't know if they have a Mercedes-Benz in the yard or if they have an old carcacha out in the yard. You don't know if they're a doctor or if they're a garbage collector. You don't know if they're rich or poor. You might be able to see if they're black or white or if they're a woman or a man. But other than that, the only way you can judge a person in Judo is what's inside. And that's one of the key philosophies of Judo. Judo is about improving yourself and making yourself an outstanding, better person, a better character. And the purpose of Judo is to give back to society. In Japan, these philosophies help the country run. It's not like out here where we have this mass space, a Wild West. There, everything is very tight. People are on top of each other. Things are built up. And if people did not follow a philosophy of mutual cooperation, things would be really difficult in that tightness of an environment. So Judo is all about cooperation, and in Judo we learn the importance of working with another person. One of our key philosophies in Judo is what we call Jito Koi. Jito Koi means win-win. It means you and me shine together. In Judo, you try to help the other person, but at the same time, you try to help yourself. So in Judo, there's no philanthropy. If we see somebody begging for money, a Judo person would come up to the person and take them into McDonald's, go up to the manager and say, could you hire this guy and give him a job? Then he can feed himself, he can make some money, and he can be part of the society. This is how Judo thinks. We want everyone to work together to improve the environment that we live in for the person that we're helping plus ourselves. So we're not doing this without some self-motivation. In Judo, we do a lot of throws, and our throws are devastating. And I'm sure you saw Ronda use a lot of those in the UFCs that she won before somebody finally connected with her with a strike. Anyhow, what they learn to do first in Judo is how to protect themselves. We call it falling immunization. Why don't you show out how we do the falling backwards and the falling sideways, guys? Amir, turn around so one's going one way and the other one's going the other way. You can see it. All right, keep going. What's your name?
So it's very loud.
And what they're doing is it's actually a transfer of energy. The energy that would be going into their body by slapping the mat at a 45-degree angle, we're using the principles of physics to dissipate that into the ground so we're not hurt. In fact, in Hollywood, years ago, a very famous stuntman by the name of Gene LaBelle, who was a judo champion and Rhonda's coach, he founded the Stuntman's Association when it was just men, and everyone that got in it had to get a certificate from him at LA City College that they learned how to fall in judo before they could get into the union, believe it or not. After you do these falls from the standing position, we do what we call a forward roll, a forward fall, forward ukemi. You guys want to show that, please? Push the mats together. By the way, as a bonus, when we're done with the demo tonight, I urge you all to look me up on YouTube, look up Gary Goltz, or better yet, look up Jack Black Tiger Roll. And you'll see me correcting Jack Black on Conan O'Brien, because he did this fall improperly a few years ago. It's had about 700,000 hits. It's pretty funny. All right, so once they have warmed up, they've done the falls, I'm going to show you a couple of the principles. Guys, could you bow in, please? It's all about balance. Keeping your balance and breaking your opponent's balance. Very important. So they're showing the different positions of off balance right now. To the rear, to the corners, to the sides, to the front. And from each one of these positions, there's actually 8 of them. It's an octagon. There's 8 positions of balance. And from each one of these positions, we have throwing techniques that can be applied effectively, depending upon how our opponent attacks us. And then we have 5 different ways to throw people. And in each one of the 5 different ways to throw people, we have probably about 10 or 15 throws. So when you add it up, there's over 100 judo throws you'd have to learn them all. But some involve the legs. I want to show some ashiwaza, please. This is a foot sweep. Osodogari. This is a reaping technique. Ouchigari. It's another reaping technique. That was a hip throw. He's moving on. All right, show another hip throw. Harai Yosh. Let's see it. Good job. All right, how about a couple hand techniques? See Ippon Sio Unagi, one arm shoulder throw. This throw actually was developed as the way the Japanese used to have to take the water from the wells. They would pick it up on a pole, a bucket, then carry it on their shoulders. So a lot of judo came from ways they were doing chores and things, and they just melded into jiu-jitsu and eventually judo. How about a couple sacrifice throws? This is called Tomoe Nagi. It's a stomach throw or circle throw. Excellent. All right. Then, in addition to throws, judo also has a lot of grappling as well. In fact, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was actually founded by one of Kano's disciples, Maeda, who on a trip to Brazil taught the Gracies judo, and they liked the groundwork so much that they decided to focus on groundwork and make that their whole art. But we do have plenty of groundwork in judo, and some people will tell you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ, stands for basically just judo. All right, let's see some groundwork. Let's see some, let's say Kamiwaza from holds. So in a judo match, if you're able to get an opponent into a hold like this and hold them for 20 seconds, it would be considered a win. And the reason it's considered a win, I'll explain it to you, is because if you were a samurai and you were in a battlefield and you got knocked off your horse, you'd have your armor on and you'd be trouncing over bodies and all kinds of debris. And the time it would take you to pull your katana, your sword out, and finish your opponent off would be about 20 seconds. So we figure if you're on the ground on your back for 20 seconds, that would be the equivalent time needed if this was a real war for somebody to have come and finished you off. We also, in Judo, use arm locks. Only our arm locks are only allowed to be applied to the elbow joint. You want to show some? This is Juji Gatami. Actually, Ude Hishigi Juji Gatami. Show Ude Garami. This one, also known as the Kimura in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Kimura was a Japanese judo champion in the late 40s, and he's the one that fought Helio Gracie. And so they named the hold after him, but it's really Ude Garami, our hold. We also have strangle techniques, and the strangle techniques in judo are not on the windpipe, they're on the carotid artery. And the idea is to occlude the carotid artery long enough to cause your opponent to pass out. And when he taps out, he's going into lack of oxygen to the brain. I've seen it happen in judo tournaments where the opponent didn't tap out. I was refereeing a match up in Seattle on Sunday, and the girl wouldn't tap out, and she went unconscious with her eyes open. I called Ippon, and when the other girl let her go, she was out like a light on the ground. It was incredible. And I knew she was out. I just said, why didn't she close her eyes? It threw me off a little bit. Why don't you guys do a little groundwork randori? Randori is free practice. In judo, after you know the moves and everything, you can like go at each other. And again, the reason Kano took out all the dangerous moves in judo, it wasn't necessarily to make judo weak or ineffective. What he was doing, he was taking out the moves that would hurt you, so that you could go 100%. You understand what I'm saying? So in judo, you don't need to worry about wearing padding or pulling your punches. In judo, you can go 100%. In fact, Bruce Lee said that he loved judo because of that. The randori aspect of judo gave judo the ability to train like no other martial way or a martial art at the time. And the judo players, when they had battles between all the various schools, the judo players won them all. Because their training methods were just so much more ferocious, because they could go all the way without having to worry about getting their knee dislocated or their toe broken or their tooth knocked out. Mate, fix the mats, please. I want to show you some of the training methods we use. If you're looking for something to do that's aerobic and physical, and increases your stamina, your wind, flexibility, and knocks off lots of weight, but also lots of inches. Let me tell you, there's nothing like judo. Judo is probably one of the hardest workouts you could ever have. Why don't you guys do some uchikomis? So uchikomis means they're going in for the throw, but they're not doing the throw. They're just doing the first two parts. In judo, you do kazushi, off balancing, sakori, entering the throw, and then kaki, which is the throw. So when we do uchikomi, we're just doing the first two parts. So again, lots of things in judo you'll find are built for efficiency. So you can practice more, you can get more work done in less time. This is the other principle of judo, very important principle. In fact, my son, who spent a year in Japan, has these two principles tattooed on his back. The second principle of judo is what we call Suryoku Zenyo. Suryoku Zenyo. It means to make the best use of your power. It's conservation of your energy. If you can do something effectively with less energy and have better outcome, this is what Goro Kano thought everyone should be striving for. So he was very much a person that was way ahead of his time when it came to things like the environment and saving and conserving your resources. Looks good, guys. Why don't we do a little randori? Stand up. Stand up. And you can transition into some groundwork. Hajime. Again, I want to emphasize that Judo does mean the gentle way. While Judo in this country, unfortunately, is not as popular as karate or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Taekwondo, I will tell you that in the rest of the world, Judo is huge. In France, there are over 1 million people doing Judo. In Japan, Korea, Brazil. In Brazil, there's more people doing Judo than there are doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, during the Rio Olympics, their moment was when their female player beat the French player for the gold medal. That was their Mary Lou Retton moment in the Brazilian hosting of the Olympics, believe it or not. And when you watch the Olympics, what I'm always amazed is when you see the opening ceremonies, about every other country that comes into the arena, the flag bearer is a Judo person, believe it or not. So Judo is out there. You just don't see it as much in this country. It's very, very, very popular. And it's usually taught in community centers, YMCAs, some campuses like this. The school I went to for my undergrad, University of Pittsburgh, I founded the Judo Club there in 1972, and it's still going strong to this day. I'm a Steeler fan too. It's also an Olympic sport. Let's do one quick match. Following you guys, I'm gonna referee. Just a mock match. Hajime. So this is the same way it would be in the Olympics. Do a Wazari throw, Amir. I said Wazari. Wazari! And then he finishes him with a Juji Gatami punt. When you get a full point in Judo, it's the end of the match. You can score that full point in the first second of the match if you're very efficient. And again, that's one of the things we strive for in Judo, is to be efficient. Make the best use of our power. One more time. Hajime. Mate. Judo. Judo. I just gave him a penalty for stalling, both of them. What you mean? One! Somebody! Okay, we like a lot of action in Judo. In Judo, we're taught to take calculated risks. In order to complete a throw, you have to turn in front of your opponent, you have to take some daring, bold steps. But this is just like in life. And trust me, in your educational endeavors, which I was where you were at your age, later got my master's, you learned, and the same thing in business. The people who don't take that risk, who aren't willing to get out there and put themselves forward, they get passed up by the other person. So Judo, we learned this lesson very young age. And we're also in Judo, we're embarrassment immunized. In fact, I'll tell you who told me that. It was Dr. Anne-Marie DeMars, who was my predecessor as the president of the U.S. Judo Association. And she's Rhonda's mom, by the way. And she said, in Judo, we all are embarrassment immunized. So Judo, you really do have the kind of personality and presence It's called ganbare in Japanese, where you push yourself forward, you're not afraid to take a risk, you're not afraid to dive in, and you want to get the full gusto out of life. Judo's also good in self-defense. Now move. Does anyone have any questions? What would you like to learn? Come on. We'll make an exception.
No, I don't mind. They're really easy to put back on anyway.
These are dirty. Okay, first thing in judo, always bow to your opponent. This shows mutual respect, okay? So come out here and grab his gi right here. And grab his sleeve right here. This way, this way. This way, yes. All right. So first thing I want you to do is break his balance this way, right here. So the way to do that, you're gonna with your, yes. You don't have to, let me get my mic. Yes. You know what, you don't have to overuse your force. Because if you use too much force, it causes the opponent to react. So you just give a little force. Just pull a little bit here, and down this way, and push here. Okay, good. Now when you do that this time, step in with that foot right here. Good.
Like that?
Yeah. I'll bring the other foot in. Bring the other foot in.
Like here?
Yeah, right behind it. Now throw him.
Sure. Bring the leg.
Sweep.
Sweep the leg. Sweep it.
Try it again. Pull. Always grab right here. This way. Let me show you. See, she's grabbing like this, and you can't get a good pull over deep. This is very good to show the principle. There's two ways to pull. There's a push and a pull. So the hikite is the drawing hand. That's the steering hand. So this is my hikite. So this one's going to steer right here like this. So I'm steering him, kind of like I'm swinging a katana, a sword. So I'm swinging right here. Here. This hand is the power. This is the motor. This is the sword take. So let me show you. You hold that for a second. So I want them to see. So this hand is my power. Right here. See that? When I step in, break his balance. Here. Oh. This way. Yeah. Pull. Now this one, bend the elbow, push. I'll step in that leg, bring the other leg in, push. Now the other thing we do in judo is we like to hold our opponent. And the reason we hold our opponent is multifaceted. So I'm a police officer, and he comes over to me, and he grabs my shoulder and pulls me. Now hold his arm. Now watch if he goes to grab that knife.
Can't.
So we always anticipate our opponent's next move. And this is why judo is absolutely the best martial art for police. In fact, for 10 years, I was a carded LAPD defensive tactics advisor, and several of my black belts were their trainers. Any other questions? Yes.
Can I volunteer too?
Come on. Okay, first thing you pound. All right? So I want you to grab one right here. Right here, right here, right here. All right? All right, so here's what I want you to do. When you pull the arm this time, up like this. In fact, we have a saying in Judo that when we do the forward kazushi, we look to see what time it is on our watch right here. So that's what I want her to do. I want her to pull her arm up, and I want you to pull up and look, check your time. Right there. Okay, good. Good. Excellent. Okay, now I want you to take this leg and step right here. Yeah, right there. And pull this arm up here. Okay, now let go right here. Let's put that around his back. Now bring this leg all the way around. All the way around. All the way around.
There we go.
In between his feet. In between his feet.
Okay, give me this one. Give me this one.
Give him a little more space.
Right here, right here. Put your hip in here. Put your hip in all the way. Okay, throw. When you do it, you want to make sure that you get your center of gravity here. Right here. So you want to come here, here, right here. All right? So, yeah, step over here. Get this arm around him. Turn the hip in. Move your hip over. Yeah, now throw. You got it. Anyone else?
Only the girls want to kick ass.
I was like, I wish I could go, but I have to. This is fun. This is fun. Yeah, yeah.
Right here, right here. Right here. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to get down on your knees right behind them. All right, so I'm going to do it first. Watch. So all I want you to do is this. Very simple. You're going to take this hand and put this hand here like this, okay? See that? Then you're going to grab your hand like this. Then I want you to take this bone right here. Everyone see that bone right here?
Yeah.
What's that called? Anyone, what do you call it? Well, I'll tell you what I call it. I call it the strangle bone. All right, so I put my strangle bone on this carotid artery right here, and then all I'm going to do is just press in on that artery. Come on. Don't stand right here. Don't come around and grab your hand. Right, grab right here.
See ya, dude.
One more. All right, come on. Oh, real question. Okay. Well, you know what? If you go on my website, judo.com, there's a story about this kid that was 14 years old delivering his papers in Pittsburgh. And a couple of muggers, would-be muggers, came up, and the one stood in front of this guy, and the other one grabbed him from behind. And when the guy in front threw a punch, I blocked it and kicked him. And when the other guy tried to get away, I threw him into my dad's car, and the little vent window hit him in the back. They both fell down. They got into the car that was waiting for them with the driver laughing his head off. And talk about maximum efficiency. I'd only been doing judo about 3 years when that happened. And the next day when I went to school, all the teachers read that story in front of the class, and I never had to get in one fight the whole time I was in high school. Anything else?
Can I do some randori?
You want to read one of these guys? I think it's a little tight up here. You know what? Where have you done judo?
It's you, PJ.
Where?
Check my corona.
Cool. I know those guys.
But Sensei Gary from Randers MMA.
Yeah.
Come train with us.
There are a lot of tremendous Brazilians that do both. In fact, I'll be at a clinic on Sunday at Paulo Augusto in San Diego. He's 6'9" in judo, 6'10" in BJJ. We're good friends, and actually when I was doing the defensive tactics advising for the LAPD, both Horian and Hoyce were on the same panel. Gene LaBelle, Hayward Nishioka, Benny the Jet, and several other really famous martial artists. Very good. I like BJJ a lot. We need to figure out how to get them integrated with judo more. A lot of those guys come to our workouts, and a lot of my guys go to theirs. A lot of similarities.
Nice knowing you.
Anything else? Yes.
I actually have a question for both these guys right here.
Yeah.
Was it a little difficult for to learn all those master moves, kind of
Just
you know,
like
just
anything
anything?
you do in life, just practice makes perfect, The more you do, eventually it'll come, just like anything else.
And you don't give up. For me, it took 10 years to take this black belt, and there was a lot of time that I was feeling really lazy that I don't want to do that. But yeah, I did it a lot. For example, every Saturday I ask myself why I'm doing this, right? I'm just drinking beer and saying, oh God, this is what
Are you interested? Join a club. Join a
Say
club.
yes, say yes.
Actually, in this area, they have a club at Adrenaline. My friend teaches it. He's San Bernardino sheriff. They have another club over in Fontana. One of my students teaches it. In fact, I stopped there on the way over. My club's in Claremont. There's a bunch of them in this. Riverside Sheriffs has one of the biggest clubs in the country. So there's plenty of them here, and I'm sure if enough people showed interest, and the school could probably sponsor a club here. Yeah,
A question, have you ever worked with handicapped people?
very good question. I told the professor who organized this when I came out today that the Disability Expo here every year, I've been here every year to teach the special needs students. And there's also Special Needs Olympics, and we hosted it at UCLA a couple years ago, and that's a really big aspect of judo. In fact, the club in Riverside has a bunch of autistic kids and some Down syndrome and some even worse that all get on the mat. So yeah, and remember, in judo, the only person that you're really competing against is yourself. So that's who you're measuring your progress against. So I mean, if you're a special needs person and you have a hard time making a turn, the next time you come back, you make that turn a little further, you've improved. And that's the progress that our founder, Kano, would have said is what a person should strive for, to make themselves better than what they were the day before. Anything else? Yeah.
Will leg locks ever be allowed in judo ever again?
They were before it became an Olympic sport, and I learned a lot of them. And we also have a Kosen Judo division that we just started in the USJA, but probably not. Judo is driven a lot by the Olympic movement, and one of the things that is real important is that judo doesn't look like wrestling. They actually put wrestling on a hiatus at the 2020 Olympics, and that's one of the reasons in judo we have made it so you can't grab legs and do different things that were part of my judo growing up, because we don't want it to look like wrestling. We want it to look more sensational, more stand-up, more throwing. Personally, I think it's kind of BS. But, it does keep us in the Olympics, and the Olympics fuels a lot of judo in the world. I mean, when the Olympics are on, they show them on the internet here, but I'm telling you, in '92 I was in Japan, they had the entire divisions from start to finish. In most places in the world, judo is just like gymnastics or track and field or swimming. Everywhere they're watching it. In fact, when I was in Cuba, I met the head of the Cuban women's team, and I was staying at my friend's bed and breakfast, and a guy's wife who was in her mid-60s saw a picture of me with the Cuban coach, and she went nuts. She was like, oh, that's Tia. It would have been like as if I was in Pittsburgh and they saw a picture of me standing with Bradshaw. I mean, that's how well known this guy was. It was just incredible. So in other parts of the world, judo really has a lot of recognition. In France, all the top judo people are celebrities. No question. Anything else? This has been fun. Thank you very much.